Hakadosh Boker Or Masechet Nedarim Daf Mem Daled Amud Aleph 44a1. If you remember, we said what happens right now if it's going to be a case. Aval, right? What happens if he said Amar Tez Sadezu Mufkeret Yom Echad? Imagine somebody comes and he says this field is going to be ifker for one day. Remember, we're talking about a case where you're prohibited your things onto somebody. Now you feel bad for them. You want them to benefit from it. Now, if you're really going to make a real ifker, but now you're making it ifker for one day. Sadeh zo mufkeret yom echad. Or l'shabbat echad for 1 week. L'chodesh echad for 1 month. Shana echad for 1 year. Shavua echad for 7 years. Okay? So ad shelo zacha ba. Right? Ben hu or ben acher. It doesn't matter whether it's until that nobody actually made an acquisition onto it. Whether it's the mafkir or anybody else. Right? So you could retract. But once they actually took over, ben hu ben acher, eno yachol lachzor bo. He cannot retract. Right? There's going to be a difference, and the Gemara is going to explain between ifker le'olam and ifker le'zman. Meaning that's what we're doing here. We're making a differentiation between ifker le'olam, which means forever, and ifker, which is done for a certain period of time. So says the Gemara, 1 second. Does this make sense? Reisha Rabbanan, the Seifa Rabbi Yosef. Are you going to tell me then that from the Reish of the Braita that after 3 days you cannot retract? This is what we spoke about yesterday. You remember about the 3 days in a contract. So you cannot retract. And that's mashma like Shitat Rabbanan. That the Efker goes out of the Reshut of the Mafkid even before it goes anywhere else. Meaning the second you make something ownerless, it's ownerless. And nobody took it, doesn't matter. It's already ownerless. You can't retract. Right? But the Seifa is going according to Rabbi Yosef, that until that he argues on Rabbanan, that until it doesn't go to somebody else's hand, it's still yours. So Amar Ula comes and he says, Seifa nami Rabbananhi. Seifa also is Rabbanan. Ihachi, if so, right? Amaya shelo zachaba ben hu ben acher yachol lachzor bo. So he says, 1 second, if it's so why is it that until he wasn't zocheh, whether it's him or somebody else, why can you retract that? If you're going to tell me the Seifa is also Rabbanan, right? So why is it that we said that until somebody else doesn't get it, you could retract? No. The second that you give it out, you give it out. So answers the Gemara, Shane Shana v'Shavua delo shchiche. When you come and you make it efker for a zman mugbal, for a certain amount of time, and you didn't make it efker forever. You made it efker for a certain amount of time, whether it's going to be for a year, or it's going to be for 7 years, it doesn't matter what it is. Okay? So since it's not shchiach, and a person changed from the minhag of everybody else, right? So therefore he was meshayer latzmo, like this zichut in essence. So he comes and he says, so therefore what happens is that we're going to say that he didn't want it to go out of his hands until somebody else actually took it. Meaning this is the case where they agree to Rabbi Yosef. Okay? They agree to Rabbi Yosef. Reish Lakish Amar, Reish Lakish is going to come and he's going to give another answer. You know what the answer he gives is? Midiseifa Rabbi Yosef, Reish Nami Rabbi Yosef. He says that the fact that the Seifa is Rabbi Yosef, the Reish is also Rabbi Yosef. The Reish Hainu Tama, Delal Ishtakach Torat Efker. He says because the Reish we're talking about, the reason why is because that you shouldn't forget the concept of Torat Efker, which means we don't want to understand that a person that he makes something Efker, he's patur from maaser. So because of that, we don't want that a person should come and think that now that he's got the kilo, he can be chozerbo, and then all of a sudden they're not going to be musarim. So we don't want these things. So because, and then he's going to all of a sudden be chayav and maaser. So because of that,
when he take back the field, he has to give maaser.
No, because since it's somebody else, he's patur from maaser. But if it's going to be you yourself, you're going to be chayav.
Okay,
if you come, you want to do a trick. You want to come and say, you know what, listen, I have to pay taxes. You know what I do? I make everything efker, and I take it back, and I don't have to pay taxes. It doesn't work. You understand? There you have to pay it. But if somebody else that takes it, they don't have to pay it. Okay?
So there's no maaser l'perod, and then all l'perod mechusarei maaser.
No, but you don't need it. It's patur for maaser. If it's patur maaser, you don't have to do maaser.
Once it goes to
if it's hefker and somebody else takes it, he does not have to give maaser.
Somebody else take what? Just takes fruit?
No, the fruit.
Take the entire field.
No, we're talking about the fruits. You made the fruits hefker. The second you made it hefker, Afterwards, I could come, I could take it. I don't have to give
So the
maaser.
owner have care only the fruits, but
Ask the Gemara Yachir. So, afilu miyom harishon nami leve min zefker. 1 second. If you're going to tell me like this, so why don't we just say that we don't want to forget? So even from the first day, it should be the same halacha, which means that it's going to be zoche from the efker gamur, right? That you cannot retract for the same reason that we don't want to forget Torah tefker. Amar Rabba says, mipnei ramaim. There's always tricksters. Did you realize? Tricksters you'll always find, yeah, and therefore they mafkirin v'adrim behon. They make it efker and then they take it back. Now, why do? That? They do that in order to come to be patur from maaser. So, because of those tricksters, right? We went, and that's called ha'arama.
What they do? They leave it efker and then they take it.
That's why they went and they said that mila it's not efker to be patur from the maaser, right? Unless it's going to be for a minimum of 3 days and so on and so forth. And therefore, if he himself took it, he's going to be chayav maaser. And it has to be 3 days. After 3 days, and the chachamim do not institute that he can't retract, because then you're not going to suspect for the ramaim. Because if behemet it's going to be ifker, so for 3 days, then behemet somebody's going to take it. You understand? If you make it ifker for 3 days, trust me, the second that you say something's free, don't even give it a few hours and it's already gone. You understand? When you come and you say you have to pay for something, then you don't have anybody signing up. The second you say something's free, you see how people, oh, hey, I'm coming. Oh, I'm coming. Oh, you know, where did you come from? Yeah, it's gone.
All Instagram, all
100%.
everybody going to know about it.
Aval deoraita lo avi efker. So says the Gemara 1 second, but midoraita, it's not considered efker, right? Well, even after 3 days, it's not considered efker. Because according to Rabbi Yosef, midin Torah, you could always retract. So it comes that you're chayav ma'aseh min Torah. So therefore, what's going on? Memdalad amubet 44b, right? It's a very long daf, so please put on your seatbelts. Vedil ma'ati la'asure. So he comes. Maybe you're going to come, and you're going to come to a takala, but maybe you're going to take off ma'aser min achiyuv al aptur min aptur al achiyuv, which means like this. If you're patur, when you take off maaser, you can only take off maaser on the same status quo. So, for example, if this is chayav maaser and this is chayav maaser, I could take off from here for this as well. But if this is patur and this is chayav, I cannot take off maaser from here to here or here to here because it's different halachot. This is patur, this is chayav. So I can't take off on the patur for the chayav or the chayav of the patur. I cannot take off anything. It's not the same status quo. So he comes and he says now like this. He says, right now we have a problem. Because so I just told you, midoraita, it's not considered efker. Why is it not considered efker according to Rabbi Yosef? Because I could always retract. And the fact that I could always retract even after 3 days, it's not efker. But now what are you telling me though? It's efker. Midrabanan. Now efker is chayav maaser? No. So if I'm going to say that this is patur and maaser, right? Or, right, and what we're saying, so now what am I going to do? I come in and say, 1 second. I've got over here fruits in my field, but I know that my wife and children are going to eat from it, but I didn't take off maaser now. But I have right here. So what do? I take off here. What I have here, I take it off, right? This is going to be other things, but this was going to be actually efker. It was efker, but then I'm going to take it back. And then what happens, right? I come in and say, okay, so that's now chulin. Because I took it off from here. But 1 second. This is a ptur, and this is a chiyuv. So I cannot take off from a ptur to a chiyuv. Exactly. ואותו דבר, הפוך. אותו דבר, the exact same thing, the other way around. I can take off from here for here. So therefore, he comes and he says, אתה צודק, but I can't do it even if I wanted to. Even if I wanted to, it doesn't help. Okay? 1 second. So now it says over here, so therefore, now the problem though is, if you're going to tell me now that doraita, it's not considered efker, why is it not considered efker? Because according to Rabbi Yosef, mina Torah, I could always retract. So it comes out that you are chayav and maaser. So therefore, even chachamim went and they instituted that you cannot make a chazara, right? But then they were going to be lenient to do with halachot maaser. But then you have a question: if you're going to be lenient to do with halachot maaser, dilma ati leasure min achiyuv al aptur min aptur al achiyuv. Maybe you're going to come and you're going to take off on the chayav to the patur and the patur to the chayav, right? Nothing to do with kadosh or not kadosh. This is a chiyuv. Chiyuv means that I'm obligated in maaser. This is no. This is chulin. I am obligated to give off maaser, but this is chulin. Maaser mina chulin. Okay. Right? Chulin. Right? So now this is something which I'm obligated chayav. This is something which is patur. So I cannot get from here to here, here to here. So says the Gemara, right? So answers the Gemara, and we say, aser mine ube. So that means we're going to come and we're going to tell him, listen, you know what? You have to do yourself a favor. When you're going to come and you're going to take off maaser from this field, you just made hefker and afterwards you grabbed it back and all these things, you have to take off maaser from the same field. You cannot take it off from another field. Why? Because if not, you get into a problem. Whether it's that, mina Torah or not mina Torah, that it was or wasn't, the entire concept of the maaser, right? So therefore, right? So therefore, one second. So therefore, one more time. So therefore, what happens is now it comes out that, right, when it's not going to be a problem. What's not going to be a problem? Because even though I took this field, I made it hefker, and then I took it back, I'm still going to take off maaser. But I'm not worried that I'm going to take off maaser from here to here or here to here, because I tell them, when you take off maaser from this field, you have to take it off from the same field. Okay. You cannot use another field from maaser. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. Same thing. Has to be from the same field. From the same in the hefker part. Everything has to be from the same field. Now that it's going to be the same field, I do not have a problem. Why don't I have a problem? Because at the end of the day, I don't have any problem. The bottom of Memdaled Amubet, or in the middle, right, of Memdaled 44b. Meitvei, so we're asking the question now. Hamafkiret karmo. Imagine right now, somebody comes and he makes his kerem, his vineyard, hefker. Velashachar, and in the morning, right, that means the next morning, Amadu B'tzaro, he came and he did reaping of it. And right, that he comes and he reaps. Kitzira is reaping, right? So what happens? So therefore he himself was zoche and everything. So chayav beperet olot shechaveh. So he's chayav in all these things. What are all these things? Right? Remember that these are the things that we also learned, right? Also in Kiyam Masechta. This is all the different, right? Exactly. So therefore he's chayav, right? The peret is one anav or shnaim that they come and they fall down, right? The olilot is if it's going to be a cluster, right? And then you have the shicham peah is by everything. Remember what you forget, and the peah is the corner. Upatur mina maaser. But here it says you're going to be patur from the maaser. Now the Gemara is going to ask, 1 second. Okay? Here it said you're chayav in all these things, right? Because even though you made it hefker, you're still chayav in kol advarim ha'ele. Huh? Right? Yes. So that means in all these things you're still going to be chayav, but you're patur mina maaser. So says the Gemara, bishlama le'ula. I understand Ula, which he was the first one that answered, and he answered that everything is according to Rabbanan. So therefore, Minadini cannot retract. So the Rabbanan Ktanila. So this is going according to Rabbanan. And therefore, even though he was Zoche in his own Keren, nevertheless, he's Patur from Maaser. Why? Because according to the Rabbanan, the second I made it Hefker, it's 100% Hefker. Now, when I come and I retract and I take it back, now I was Zoche from the Hefker. Okay? So therefore, it makes sense. And mina Torah we're talking about that it's going to be patur mina maaser, which means even though you're right, the Chachamim came and they instituted that you could be choser bo, right, within the 3 days. So for when you're going to be choser bo, technically you're chayav maaser d'Rabbanan because you retracted the next morning, right? So that means the next morning you came and you were zochenet mina Torah, it was hefker. So mina Torah you're patur for maaser, midrabbanan you're going to be chayav maaser. Okay, but according to Resh Lakish, that Shakish was the one that said that everything is going in Shitat Hu, Rabbi Yoseh, and not Rabbanan. Amay patur min maaser. Why are you going to be patur min maaser? According to Rabbi Yoseh, remember, when I come in and make something hefker, until somebody else doesn't take it, it's not hefker. Meaning somebody has to be zochen it, and then it becomes hefker. Until then, technically, it's still in my possession, right? Until then, for example, an afkamino would be, what happens if right now I put it in the street, and somebody comes and they trips over it? If you're going to tell me it's hefker, it's hefker. But if you're going to tell me, right, yeah, it's mine, it's a problem. Technically speaking, it's not the best, because even if it would make it hefker, I'm still obligated. Because I put the stumbling block in front of people. Right? But forget about that. But it's like I'm saying, Lu Yitzuya, if you would think about such a case. Okay? So why are you going to be patur from the maaser? So answers the Gemara, Amar lecha, ki amriyana, when do we say this? According to Shitat Rabbi Yoseh. V'hara banani. So Resh Lakish is going to say, 1 second, this is only going according to Rabbi Yoseh, but this Braita in itself is going to be according to Shitat Rabbanan. Okay? So, says the Gemara on Memhei Amud Aleph. Okay? Ibait Ema, if you want, you could answer. Had de afkere be'an petreim ve'had de afkere be'apetlata. There's also a difference. How do you do hefker? The first Braita is talking about when you could be choser bo me'afker, which is according to Shitat Rabbi Yoseh, Mina Torah. We're talking about that you only did it hefker in front of 2 people. And the Braita, the second Braita, which means that you did it hefker in front of 3 people. When you do something hefker in front of 3 people, it's hefker gamur, and therefore you cannot retract. And that's why you're going to be patur from the maaser. The difference is when you do it in front of one person or two people, there's still no call. Meaning there's no voice that's running around. You understand? So therefore what happens is that it's not as that to be mafkirid, right, to everybody. You wanted to maybe just like one of these two people. It's like, for example, I'm going to take you both here. I'm going to say, this is Efker. This is Efker. That means I wanted that both of you, that one of you, right? So which means that you wanted that it should be taken. You understand? But not other people. But therefore, it's going to be a matana. So therefore, Rabbi Yosef comes and he says that it's not going to go out of his reshut until somebody else is going to be zochebo. But he comes and he says when he's going to be mafkiret in front of three people, right? When he's going to be coming and he's going to go in front of three people, right? So what happens? For sure it's hefker, because then it's from kol haolam kulo, because then everybody knows about it. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yotzada, right? Okay, so he comes and he says, but says Rabbi Yochanan in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Yotzada, kol hamafkir bifnei shlosha have hefker, bifnei shnayim lo have hefker. When you come and you do it in front of three people, it's for sure hefker. Remember that when you have three people, it runs. Nowadays, is actually a very good question. What about with social media? Because with social media, even if you do it in front of one person, within 2 seconds, right, it becomes the entire world, right? But viral. In the olden days, you needed three people to run the word. They're going to come, so you have three people, everybody knows about it. But in front of two people, it's not going to be. Yes, as we just said. So three people, it's going to be Efker, right? If it's going to be two, no. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi Omar. Well, that yes, because that is a special inyan. Says the Biur Halacha that if you cannot do in front of with 10 people, so you do it with 3 people and it's still good.
No, it's yes. Instead of doing with your minyan, then you do it like that.
So Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi comes and he says, "Dvar Torah afilu be'echad havi hefker." Even with one person, it's going to be hefker. Umata amamru. Can you guys please stop? Thank you. So why is it that we said by 3 people? That's not going to be hefker. You always wanted there should be 3 people because you want one person to be zoche and 2 people that they're going to testify that that person came and he was zoche. So therefore he cannot retract. He cannot say anything. If it's only 2 people, you're going to come. You're going to say, okay, I was the one zoche. There's only one witness saying that it was true. So I'm going to say it's not true. It's not true. Right? The entire thing, they made it up. They fabricated the entire thing. It's a whole scheme. They're con artists. They came and they said, so what happens? There's 3. If there's 3, one person is going to be zoche, and the other 2 are going to testify. Once there's 2 people testifying, I can't do anything about it. So therefore, that's why we said that the 3 is going to be much more powerful. Hadran Allah and Ben Amudah.